right, what's up? It is June 25th, and you're here with Gym Therapy Inc. This week we have special guest Kara Hobbs.
Hi.
Trista Long.
Hi.
Alyssa Mingle. And I'm Justin Mingle. We are going to talk to you about Kara this week. Yeah. Let's go.
I've never had him actually introduce me. I didn't even get to say my own name.
I'm not going to lie. I panicked when we went through it. So, Kara, what's up?
Hi.
You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I went to high school with all of these fine people. I've not seen any of them in 20 years or so.
Yeah, it's been pretty close.
But I've had a lot of big life changes. I'm born and raised in Purchase Line area. Moved to Nashville about 10 years ago now.
Okay.
I'm a nurse practitioner.
Nice.
I've done a lot of travel since I've moved out of the area. I've been all over the world. Cambodia, India, Cuba, Africa. But yeah, and I'm back in town.
That's awesome.
I brought my 2-month-old daughter to meet my 89-year-old grandmother this weekend.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm here visiting.
Okay, so you're a mother of two?
Mom of two, yeah.
Okay, and then you live in Nashville right now, you said?
Yep, I'm about 20 minutes south of downtown.
Okay, cool.
What made you move to Nashville?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I had married my college sweetheart, a guy I had met at Penn State. We were married for about a year after we had dated for 3 years. And I incidentally kind of had some difficulties in our relationship. I actually found out that my husband was gay. And so that's ended in a divorce. And I just kind of needed a clean break. The divorce was kind of messy. My husband at the time was suicidal. His family was devout Catholics. So he was really worried about, his secret getting out, and kind of a few different times was like, if you tell anybody, like, I'm gonna kill myself, I can't go on like this. Like, it was pretty hurtful. I mean, and I loved him, of course. I married him, so I decided, it was just kind of better for me to clean break and move on. I did have some friends in Nashville at the time, so that was kind of like a helping hand to get.
So you went down there by yourself,
right?
Yeah. So I can't even imagine the pain that brought to you, and also like to him to carry a secret like that for so long out of shame and fear.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah, it was really challenging for me because I also come from a very devout Christian family, and I thought I was doing the right thing because I had met this guy whose family's super religious, didn't want to have sex before marriage, and I was like, oh, I'm in this. This is great. And so then after we got married and nothing really changed, with our intimacy, I was like, something's going on here.
Yeah.
And so it was a hard discovery for me.
I bet.
But it was definitely a life-changing event and just kind of one of those things where you just like, at my time, my coping mechanism was running away.
Of course.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm also a runner. Nice to meet you.
I ran very far
that.
away.
Yes.
And I think it was probably about 2 years before, because he went and told my family that I was cheating on him, which
of course.
Was true. But, I was cheating on him because I hadn't been
Stuff comes out.
in like 4 years. But yeah, it was, so my family was under the perception I was like this adulteress, and I was just jumping off the deep end by moving to Nashville. It was probably 2 years that I had been in Nashville before I finally told my family, like, hey, let me tell you something about my ex-husband that you probably don't know.
Yeah.
And it just kind of changed like my whole relationship with my family.
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure.
Isn't it amazing what people will do to keep themselves from being seen in a negative light? They will throw someone else underneath the bus. Like, there was so much more to the story, but he chose to throw you under the bus instead of just being honest and be like, this is why this is happening. And it could have just like opened the door for forgiveness for everybody in the entire situation.
Yeah, it really could have. But I mean, the grand scheme of things, like, everything worked out perfect.
It worked out,
Right,
it worked out the way it was
Look at
supposed to.
where you are now.
But yeah.
All right, that's a lot to unpack.
I wanna
That's
hide
a lot.
it.
Let's get.
Let's go.
All right, we're gonna kind of recap what we did this week. Liz, what anything exciting? What's going on in the future? What happened this week?
Oh, nothing really.
Go
Just went to
ahead.
work.
All right.
I don't know that I said this on the last podcast about going to Harrisburg to do an SM training, which means safety compliance management, I think are the words. So I'm going to learn how to be a restraint teacher,
Good.
like to train other people. And I found out this past week why they want me to go, and it's because I'm a good teacher.
Awesome.
So that's what they
Yeah.
said. So, and I've been there for going on 4 or 5 months now, and the other people that are going have been there over a year. So
Good for
So-
you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
excited
That's
about that.
amazing.
You have we talked about this, but you have a pretty bulldog mentality, and that's one of your best.
Not
one of your
really.
best-
No.
Yeah. We're
You're
learning how to
lying.
step back and use that to
Jesse's
your
just
advantage.
producing silence over there. He's like, nope.
Trista, what do you got going on?
Well, the weekend before, I have to say, I went to T-Swift and it was incredible. If anyone has a chance
Nice,
to go to the
yeah.
Eras tour, you should definitely go. It's like you listen to the show of like her growing up and you hear like the same story that you as a teenager felt, like searching for validation, searching for approval, showing up as this sweet, kind girl to everybody and never causing any disruption
I
in your
love how
life.
she
'cause that's
writes
what
her
you're-
own music,
Yeah.
though, like by herself.
And that's what you're like told to do is like never cause turmoil and just be the good girl and be likable. And then eventually when you hit your 30s, you're like, you know what? I don't have to be likable all the time. And like all this time you had this power, but you never knew it.
never knew
And
you
so
had
that
it.
was a cool experience. And then I had the kids classes start this week at the gym, which has been great.
How many kids you got?
And around between 9 and 11. We have a couple people that, like custody arrangements are different. So the kids have to come certain days, which is, I'm happy to be able to accommodate because a lot of times you don't even think about that if it's not your situation. But my partner, that's part of his situation. Thankfully, his ex brings Bentley back and forth, which makes life a lot easier. But there are people that don't always have that luxury. So I cut the price in half for people that have that situation. But it's funny, I have a lot of their parents in classes and it's
Yeah.
just like little mini like of
They
their
just
parents.
act just like their parents.
Yeah,
That's pretty
yeah.
cool, though.
So-
That's
It's
cool.
funny watching you too because you love like putting us through the ringer whenever we're working out. You like get a
Yeah.
little bit out of it, but with the kids you're so nice and you're so
So
yeah.
gentle.
And it just seems like
They're just so cute. And then, like watching them push little sleds, Chase's little daughter's like, Miss Trista, this is really hard.
Yeah, of course. It's supposed to be hard.
So
Yeah.
that's good.
Good,
How
good,
about
good. I had a pretty interesting week. For some of you guys following along on personal stuff, my dog had a mast cell tumor removed, and then we decided to put her on chemo, and then she had an adverse reaction to it and was really, really sick. She had like 105-degree temperature and
Did she
was.
stay in the vet? Like, did she stay at
So
the vet?
what we did was we took her to the vet at 8 in the morning. She got put on an IV, was there till 8 at night. They sent us home with an IV. We slept downstairs, just left it connected to her, and then they gave us a bag we could change. And then it was about 5 days of 24-hour IV treatment.
Of
and
what?
then
Is it antibiotics or?
well, antibiotics, she was originally, but then she was on pill form, and then like saline, just
Fluids,
for hydration. Tried to flush the stuff out of her, so we tried to make sure she kept like peeing and the stuff like that all day long. And it was hard because the first night we went home, it wasn't in her arm right, and the only time she could get like a flow of it is if she stood up. And you had to have like 100 milliliters an hour, I think it was, or something like that. It was one drip every 4 seconds, and like she wouldn't do it, so we had to have her stand up, and then we put a whole bunch in her, and then close it back down, and it was just tough. And then, but she was fine. Like we just put shifts in. It kind of reminded me of being a kid whenever like shit hits the fan and like everybody's sleeping in the living room.
Yeah.
It was like it was just such a
Or the power's out and you have candles.
yeah,
all
right.
over.
Yeah, it was a pretty good experience. And then later in the week, I took Assist. It's suicide intervention training, and that was Thursday, Friday. And my week was pretty rocky with my dog until Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, it was pretty heavy stuff sitting in the room. Like
How long was the day?
it was 2 8-hour days. So
that's a lot.
and the last day was completely all role playing, and you had to
Ooh, yeah.
role play as like the person
Yeah.
doing suicide and the person trying to intervene too. So it's like
That was where you fit right in.
I did,
The
yeah.
role-playing part, not the suicide.
No, but like we've all had those thoughts. We've all had those. There's no.
Yeah.
You know, and you
absolutely.
kind of you have to react and you have to talk about things. And it was like the girl beside me, Michelle from the open door. I was like telling my story. I was semi making stuff up, And I like sat back and like kind of exhaled and talked about it. And she like leaned forwards, like, what's going on? And I was like, there's these feelings, these thoughts, like my heart. But it turned out it was good. It was good. I'm glad to have it. And if you guys are having suicidal thoughts or anything like that, just don't be afraid to reach out.
And shout out to Sherry Skidmore, our friend from the Community Guidance Center, for giving Justin the opportunity to go to that.
Yeah.
Where was it?
It was at the Hilton. And Erica, who comes to the gym, does a
in
great
Indiana.
job. Yeah, at the
Oh,
Hilton
okay.
Garden Inn. She does. She's just, she's always lurking. She's always popping up somewhere, wherever we're at.
And she's always like just like a positive
She is.
vibe.
She's a
Like,
happy
she's
kid.
always a
She's
good
always
person.
smiling.
But that's our week. Do you have anything going on like recently? Anything you want to promote?
Yeah, no, nothing super crazy. Just travel, getting back home.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're here for a couple of days. Did you bring your husband? And you said you have 2 kids?
I have 2 kids, so it was just me and my 2-month-old daughter. That was
Okay.
it. Yeah, it cost a small fortune
Yes.
to travel.
I'm assuming you flew.
Family
Like,
for. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
how was that with the baby?
It's since I did it with my first. It's like
You kinda
I
knew what to do.
I know.
Yeah, okay.
I know the routine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what to do. So
Yeah, just bringing Jers home with Megan and I. It's our first like big problem we had with her, and I literally felt like newborn, like she was a newborn, because like trying to carry her and this and that and what about this? It's like there's so much stuff we didn't know.
yeah.
I don't know.
Toddler age, the secret is snacks. It's always
Yeah.
the
Ooh,
answer.
yeah.
Snacks.
Same with dogs. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's also the answer to me as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we'll kind of get started a little bit. Do you want to talk about yourself professionally a little bit, what you do and some of your trips, and like, is it mission work that you're doing, or is it set like it?
Yeah,
Or
so I had done mission work. My first trip was to,
That's all right.
was to Cambodia, and I went with an organization called Freedom's Promise. They help with the prevention of human trafficking.
pretty cool.
And so we set up medical clinics in schools, and the goal is to attract families, women bringing their children to the school for medical treatment. And then we're like, hey, like, instead of sending your kid to Thailand to work at Old Navy, like, you should send your kid to school, like, or I mean, and you also have to consider, there's part of the population that's huge for sex trafficking in that area too. So that's the goal, is just to attract the community in, bring the community in, offer them resources, and just try to get them to get their kids educated so they can raise up a whole new generation
Oh, yeah, of course.
of young folks that are going to change their community.
That's
How many
awesome.
people
That's
do you think-
fantastic.
For the time periods that you were there, how many? I mean,
Oh,
that might
so
be just
I
hard to figure out.
I go with a group of providers. After the first time I went, I actually ended up on the board of directors of Freedom's Promise, and
Nice.
I helped lead 3 different trips there. It just really became a part of my heart, just working with communities. And I mean, we would probably see 200 patients in
Wow.
a day. You
Wow.
know,
In a day.
Fantastic.
in a
Wow,
day. Yeah,
that's
there'd
amazing.
usually be somewhere between like 6 and 8 providers.
Okay.
Anywhere between like an RN and physicians, dentists. We had some dentists come with us. But yeah, so quite a range.
What are the living conditions like for these folks?
Yeah, that is. It's kind of what you'd imagine, like the whole like mud hut situation,
Really?
corrugated aluminum, bamboo houses. They're really not enclosed structures, and that's also because of the heat.
It's so hot.
To allow airflow through the home. So it's pretty desolate. Like there's trash everywhere.
Oh, I'm
like
sure.
trash everywhere. Like kids playing on railroad tracks with broken glass. And
Oh, my.
it's actually one of the areas that we go to. It's really common for people to work in the landfill, where they go through the landfill and they pick through the trash and try to resell part of the trash. That's pretty common.
Are they
occupation.
like they at least up to date on stuff like tetanus and whatnot? Or
No, not at
no?
all. Not
No.
at all. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I know. Even vacation places like Dominican Punta Cana, we went there and it was jump on a horse for like pictures. It was Valentine's Day. It was really nice, and you'd ride through like trash, like, and there'd be like 100 yards of perfect
Yeah.
landscape. Get off, take pictures, and then you ride through trash. Even I don't know. I thought that was kind of
It's
interesting.
heartbreaking to leave resorts and countries like that.
Yes.
Because you see what the people live in.
4 or 5 people on one bike, like
yeah,
one boat.
yeah, and we see mothers carrying their infants on the bike on the back of
They
like
carry water on their
excavators.
heads.
Not there, not in
Okay.
Cambodia, but yeah, it's pretty naked kids everywhere.
Yeah.
It is pretty
Most of them don't have any education. Like that's why you're kind of
rarely,
pushing.
very
Yeah.
rarely, yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to imagine a life like that. Like when you live in a country like this, it's hard to imagine.
And I don't think you can.
People
Until
take
you
it-
see it and you
yeah.
experience it. And like our lunch, like this is a fun. Would be doing our clinic, and the kid would come up with his little bicycle, and on the back of his bicycle, he would have a box full of like crickets, and like that would be like the snack. Like our translators would go out and be like paying him
wow.
for like a bag full of crickets for a snack and stuff.
A bag full of crickets.
Crickets,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, it was very
Yeah.
interesting. Like, for lunch we were eating like what our translators would bring us, and it was usually like a little hot dog container, mostly rice, and then it was like chopped up like chicken or pork. But you have to remember, like, they eat all the parts
Yes.
of the pork.
animal,
So
yeah.
you're getting like some pork
Yeah,
skin
we-
and like
we
You
just
get
take
sick.
chicken with the bones and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
we just take advantage of
I
the
feel
way that
like
we
it's
live here.
due to like the heat more so than the food.
Okay.
I think it's more of a heat thing, but that's the other thing is like
When
there's
you're
no
hot.
proper sewer there.
Yes.
So like when you're going to the bathroom, it's like they have some of the places had like a toilet there, and then there's like a 5-gallon bucket full of like stagnant water in front of it. So you like use the toilet and then you
use
use
the
like a
water.
scoop to like rinse the toilet when you're done. And the funny thing about it is like it goes straight down and out the back, and there's like a gutter in the back. So it's just like
It's just
raw
flowing
sewage
out
stuff,
anyways.
right.
Oh my
Like I
goodness.
should have just went outside in the first place. But
Yeah.
that's where it's gonna end up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I had a
Yeah.
girlfriend that did mission trips, and she said she got really, really like sick. And most people end up getting sick for
Yeah.
the
Did
first
you
couple
get-
days.
Yeah, do you have to get vaccines and stuff here
Oh,
before you
a
left?
ton of vaccines.
Yeah.
That's what I figured,
I've
too.
taken a ton of doxycycline, like anti-malarial meds.
Yeah.
A ton of doxycycline.
Yeah, but
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. What got you into doing that? Like,
yeah, so the missions work was actually, especially my involvement with Freedom's Promise, was actually just a part of my quest for healing. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and so I had been doing therapy for probably about 2 years at that point, and I just didn't. I was kind of getting desperate because, like, right, keep going to therapy, you keep talking about the same stuff over and over again, and you're just not feeling like you're making progress. And so I started getting like really desperate for like healing, answers, closure, like
Right.
Lord, take this from me kind of thing. It was just overbearing. So that was kind of what got me started in Freedom's Promise. Like, I want to go help these people. And a lot of my translators, once you start forming those relationships, like they'll open up and they'll tell you their stories about being trafficked,
Yeah,
for
that's
sexual
amazing.
purposes and everything. And
yeah.
so that was just, and oddly enough, that wasn't what healed me. Like, I mean, I spent years dedicated to that cause, thinking I was going to find my healing from that. It wasn't the answer. Like, I mean, I'm so glad that I did it, and I'm blessed to have had those experiences. But
and it's a step towards that.
It's- yeah.
Because-
yeah, and it's definitely it's a
learning
part of my
experience,
story.
too.
And who knows how many other people that I helped with my vulnerability,
Yep.
because we go over there to Cambodia, and the Cambodians are thinking like, I'm an American, my life is perfect,
Yes.
Sure.
and
Yeah.
everything. I went to a 4-year college, and everything is just, I have a car, I have a home with plumbing, and like,
Electricity.
just a lifestyle that they could never imagine. But like when you kind of share at a personal level, and that was been my experience in a lot of the places like in India and Cuba too, where you sit down and you start talking to these people, and mentally, emotionally, you share
share
So
things.
many
very
same
similar
stories.
stories.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
Do
Yeah.
any of them speak English? Like any people over there, just like that live there? Do any of them?
I'm sorry.
Do any of the people that live over there, like in Cambodia, do they speak English?
Yeah, like we had some translators, and usually those kids have actually went through high school and know a good bit of English. Yeah, or at least the ones that we were working with, they're actually doing some sort of medical training. So that was sort of.
Did you
Us
guys do that
helping
too, like the medical training as well, or you're just there to do?
We were just there.
clinical
I mean,
stuff?
we did some. They kind of asked us a lot about Western medicine, because
Okay.
the medicine we practice is a little bit different than what they practice.
Right.
But for the most part, yeah, they were just translating.
Was there safety concerns for you or anything like that? I'm talking like physical threat, not necessarily like disease and stuff like that. Was it a safe place with like guns, military people?
Cambodia was. I felt pretty safe there. But India was the only place I did not feel safe in India. In India, it is against the law because I was there with a Christian mission, and it is against the law there to spread Christianity.
Okay.
Oh, right.
So the places that we were going and doing medical clinics, like it was kind of like hush hush what
Yeah.
we were doing. And there were times when like the translator, one of the Indian leaders, would like signal us in the room that we were like we were supposed to like absolutely not talk about like
Just
the
shut it down
gospel and
completely.
Jesus. Like yeah,
Wow.
just like. And then when we were in Cuba, we did get shut down by the government.
No big deal. Just a
of
little
the-
just a little government shutdown in a commie country.
but I
No big deal.
I didn't feel so like unsafe there, but like India was really because we were even meeting like when our group met in the mornings, we would meet like in this abandoned building on the second floor. Like,
Yeah, that'd
it
freak me out.
Yeah, and like we had to go in the building and we had to wear like headscarves so like people couldn't see that we were American
Wow.
and like it was I'm like this feels a little intense. Yeah.
Yeah. How long were you there?
10 days. Yeah.
Days. Was it a little bit more fun than like showing up to like a 9 to 5 job? Like
Fun might not be the word.
Mine is not the word. It was still like, I don't know, because it is so emotionally taxing to
Yeah.
do that kind of thing that it was, I just love experiencing the culture and being
Sure.
like immersed, like going into people's houses
Yeah.
and seeing how they live. That was really awesome, but just, by the time you travel like 16 hours on a flight with
Yeah.
a layover and you don't have proper, like it's questionable if you're going to get a shower that day.
that's
like,
yeah. Is the water situation like do you have clean, healthy drinking water at all times, or
bottled water, I always carry like
Yeah.
bottled water.
But
have
India is
access
pretty
to it.
bad as far as water sewage situation, correct?
It's same.
Yeah,
same.
electricity,
Same
it's real bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said these are all faith-based.
Organizations. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when we were young, did you have strong faith when we were kids? Is that something you did? You said a Catholic family.
Yeah. Well, my family is not Catholic, but I grew up. My grandparents took me to the Church of the Brother, and I had a really close friend of mine whose parents went to the United Methodist Church. Like my parents sent me to like 3 church camps every summer.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, it was definitely a part. Even with my abuse, like that definitely played a big part of like my parents both, like it's not a secret. Like I grew up with parents that had substance abuse issues. My dad's still to this day like an alcoholic. So it was. I mean, there were times when like I can remember like being a kid and just like praying to God to feel love from somewhere.
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
saying that my parents didn't love
Yes.
us,
Right,
but
yeah.
yes,
But an
with
outside
their
source
issues,
somehow.
it's just hard for a small child to like
Yeah.
feel that love and
way-
compassion from somewhere. So
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
The way I did it, like to find it, to like feel that void of not being loved or whatever. All the sports I played, we just had to
Just
get into a
involved.
group
Absolutely,
of somebody
yeah.
somewhere. Yeah,
And staying busy.
Mm-hmm.
It just, yeah. So, yes, it's always been, and like I said, my grandmother and my grandfather are like saints. This is
Yeah.
on my dad's side. So that was always really helpful. They were always like involved in foster care. Like I always had a ride to church. My grandmother would call me on Saturday and be like, "Are you going to church?"
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
always say yes, but she was like, "Well, you have a ride. Just call." Yeah. So and that's
And your grandparents still live, they live in Dixonville?
yeah, very close to Dixonville. Yeah. So they play a very big part of my faith.
That's awesome. That's really
Yeah.
good. We're gonna take a few minute break and then we'll get right back to it. Okay. Yeah. All right. We're back from a little bit of a break. We decided we kind of want to talk a little bit about like your childhood trauma. You mentioned some stuff, and then what was like your first step towards starting to feel better? What was the conscious decision or tipping point to I'm gonna kind of tackle this head on?
Yeah, so after I moved to Nashville, well, right before I moved to Nashville, I had started doing some therapy, and that was my therapist at the time actually like insisted like pursuing my dreams. Like, if you want to go to Nashville, if this is what you want to do. Like,
And how old were you?
You
real
should
quick?
do it. I was 24, 25 at the time.
Okay.
And so she was just like, you have this great new career, you have a great opportunity. If this is what you want to do, you should do it. So I get to Nashville and, just trying to find myself, recreate myself, I guess, a little bit, making new friends. And I just kind of like started looking inward, like, I need to figure out who I am and what's going on.
Yeah.
And it was another one of those things where you just get tired of carrying stuff around. Yep. So I was just like, so how do I do this? What am I going to do? So there's a resource in Nashville called the Sexual Assault Center. And so I did research for a couple months about it and just kind of like, am I really ready to do this? And I was like, but I can't, like, the whole ball and chain thing, like, I can't carry this anymore. Like, this is just, I got to let this go. And just even looking into the future, like, I had just come out of this horrible marriage situation. I was like, if I get married again, like, I want to be able to give somebody my whole me and not have this, hang up with somebody every time I try to be intimate of like, ooh, this is triggering for me, or I don't like you to touch me this way because it's triggering for me.
Right.
And just to even explain that to somebody else. So in order for me to really wholly give myself to somebody again, I knew I was going to have to work on things. So I went to the Sexual Assault Center, and I encourage people to look up resources like that, because I think at the time I was just trying to make it on my own. By that time, like, I was asking mom and dad for money was not an option. They had a sliding scale, so it's like, seek out these resources because it can be affordable. That's I will say, probably now 10 years into it, I've probably spent 10 to 15 grand getting myself straightened out. But
you carry so much shame with like the word sexual assault. You carry so much shame with that because you don't want to say like that happened to me too. And for so long, women carry this story of like that it was my fault.
Yeah,
this was my fault. Like, was your family supportive of you through your healing process?
That's a good question. That's a good question. So I was actually abused by a family member. So just the whole like incestuous thing, like it still like makes my skin crawl and like makes me sick. But to like verbalize it out loud, but. So that was part of like my trauma.
Yeah, this is tough. First off, good for you.
So that was part of my trauma and like things to unpack is like when big break, I guess, event happened for me, and I finally told somebody. I finally went to my parents and told them. Like, it was never talked about again.
Yeah. How old were you when you did that?
So I was 5 when the abuse started, and I was 11 when I finally like told somebody. And I told my parents, and it was like never talked about again. I called my grandmother. I was like, you have to come get me. Like,
right.
Yeah.
So my grandmother came and got me, and like she was very like reassuring, but I mean she's old school. Like, she was just like, like it's gonna be okay. Like
we handle this in family.
We'll get this sorted out. And like, but like as far as my parents and my mom and dad, like. They have never talked about it to me, even now, like as an adult, and that I'm open about it. And like,
did they believe you?
Yes, I know that my dad did. I don't know about my mom, and like, I just don't even go there anymore. And I'm so far past it, I don't even care. But yeah, so that was like, that was like a whole different healing process of like coming to a place of forgiveness with my parents, as far as being like. Happened
about it, yeah.
Just like listening to your story. So you went through assault trauma from a family member, then having to go to your parents, going through the healing, then you go through the trauma with your husband. I mean, that's a lot to unpack. Like, that's a resilience that like needs to be spoken about, because a lot of people probably wouldn't have made it through all of that.
And you were let down by so many people that you should have been able to trust, and these are the people that you should be able to lean on in these sorts of situations. And it was just like each one, the rug was kind of pulled out from under you. That's tough. I can commend you for even talking about it out loud.
Yeah, it's not easy, but with time, I've learned like. This is a common story. This is not like, this is not my private little family story that this terrible thing happened to me, and this is my dirty little secret kind of thing.
It's not an embarrassing thing either, like, because that's the way I felt.
Yeah.
I felt embarrassed.
I mean, this happens to a lot of people, and like, unless we're talking about it, like, how are people to heal, right? Like, and if I can help somebody else by sharing my story, like, it's just you know?
Absolutely.
It's huge.
It's incredible. 25 was, I think, is an interesting age. Like as we kind of find out over the years, 25's basically when your brain fully develops. And we're finding out it might not be 25, might be closer to 30, depending on the person. And everybody's differently. But it was like you went through your childhood, you did all the things that we were supposed to do. We go to college, we go to high school, we play sports, we do all this kind of stuff. This is just how we were raised. This is our life. And then you kind of seek what you know a little bit, or seek what you want. Like you wanted stability, you wanted like that safety of not having to put like sex as a pressure on that situation. And then it felt like that kind of got
ripped out too.
pulled out from under you too. So at 25, you're just like, fuck it, let's go. I don't mean to, but yeah.
I knew I had to get right for myself, and I wanted to stop carrying. I wanted the next relationship that I got into, if I ever did, because I really was convinced I was just like going to get a dog and go solo the rest of this life. But I wanted to make sure like that I was able to give my whole self, a healthy self, and just kind of getting towards the end of the healing process of it is like, I always joke like that I went halfway around the world looking for my healing, and really the healing was right here the whole time.
Yeah, they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right?
Yeah. So it was just kind of, I'm sorry?
And you were the teacher all along.
Yeah, it was really fascinating to me. I remember an exercise that I did when I was in therapy, and this was before I started doing the mission work, but she had like a little compass thing, and it's like your emotional self, your physical self, your spiritual self. I forget what the last one was, but anyways, like I remember being there in my emotional self talking about just feeling like dirty, unclean. And then she had me move into like my physical self, and she was like, I want you to show me where you're feeling that. And I immediately like put my hand over like my womb essentially.
Right.
And it's just so revealing to me is the part of my healing, and what I feel has healed me were my kids, like when I had Adrian. And it was just like so incredible. The thing that I feared the most, because I was like, I never want to have kids. Like this horrible thing happened to me as a kid, and I'm not bringing other kids into this world to experience something similar. That I was just like, the thing that I feared the most, or the thing that I thought that I least desired, was the thing that ultimately brought healing to me. So I always think that that's so interesting. And, as I work through therapy, like the thing about, especially having girls, both my children are girls, but I'm just like, I have the resources, the knowledge to help her if this happens to her. Like that it's just like, that's very rewarding to me, that I know.
That you know how to handle it if it happens.
That's pretty incredible, and it really gives you some insight too. We can't fix ourselves. We can't therapize ourselves, because you don't know what is actually going to heal you. Because if it was up to you, you just never would have did that.
Yeah.
You'd just been avoided. But like through talk therapy, you mentioned one time, you commented on one of our posts and something you made, or I made, and you said, I've been through different types of therapy. And when you said that, I didn't know there were different types of therapy, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
So there's cognitive behavioral therapy. That's one of the types that I've been through. And that's really like learning your triggers, learning what creates those emotions. Like for me, like one big thing, especially when I moved to Nashville and trying to find my identity, was just like things got materialistic for me real quick. Right. I was going to get my nails done. Like I wanted to hang out with my most successful friends. I wanted to be in the most happening scene in Nashville. Like it was all about my identity, what car I was driving, and, the things that I was doing and who I was doing it with. So I had to kind of unpack that. Like, what's really going on? Oh, hey, like you don't know what's going on with yourself. Like you don't know who you are. So cost me a lot of money, but a lot of money.
I went to snag a picture of you yesterday, and I just went on your thing, and I went albums, and one of them was your Audi. You're like, how sweet this car. It was a sweet car, just for the record.
It was. But it's just like all these materialistic things, like, of course, none of it
Matters.
meant anything in the end. And the friends that I thought were my friends are, nowhere to be found. But it's just like, so you learn your triggers, you figure out, and then once you are able to recognize like, oh, hey, the last time I did this, I was headed down a downward spiral real fast. So it kind of is like a safety net of being able to understand what those certain things look like, those behavioral patterns look like,
Yeah.
and be able to translate that into, oh, I've had this feeling before, and to stop it before you end up in the downward spiral, if that makes sense.
I like
I'm
that.
sorry,
I
this
do.
is
No,
I'm not
that-
No,
articulating
this actually makes
No.
It makes
perfect sense
sense.
because
So-
it's pattern recognition because
Yeah.
you see like, oh, I've been here before, so you know how to defeat yourself.
Like,
Yeah.
when
We
people-
talked about this on our last podcast about PTSD. That's one of the big treatments for PTSD.
Yeah, and that's also along with you talk about PTSD. I have also done what's called EMDR.
That's new to me, anyways. That's not something I know a lot about. I think it's new to a lot of people.
What does
Yeah.
it say?
In this area.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah. So I did EMDR about my triggering event, and essentially what happened there, like just to kind of unpack that briefly, is like that was the day like my abuser, things went from molestation to where he was like threatening rape, unless I completely lost my shit as an 11-year-old, if
Yeah.
an 11-year-old can. And that was the day when like I told somebody, because I was
Yes.
like, oh, this is getting
Yeah.
crazy. But anyway, so what they do is like they use kind of like, again, this is not scientific. Or
I'll throw some stuff on
textbook.
the screen though for you guys.
But the EMDR is just, if I could imagine what it's like to be hypnotized, that's kind of what it is. But the framework for it is that you go back into that memory subconsciously and you save yourself from that moment. That's a Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
version.
Yeah, that's great.
incredible.
That's great.
But it completely like rewires your brain. So now, like when I think about that, like it's like I can think about that moment, but the emotions have been
Are switched.
completely rewired in my brain that I'm able to think about that moment without those same emotions, because we almost created a new memory.
Yes.
I read.
These are what, like neural pathways is what they call
Yes.
them, like correcting your neural pathways.
Yeah.
I couldn't explain something that deep. You did a good
So
job.
there's actually an app that like I follow that I kind of do on my own time because we don't really have a lot of these resources here.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. And she tells you to like go back and like see yourself in that situation and talk your way through it. And that's something that has helped me a lot to get where I'm at too, because, you know, I was also sexually assaulted in my life, and you don't realize how many women have. Pretty much all women have been sexually assaulted in some way.
Yeah.
And I saw a TikTok the other day, and it said the Taylor Swift concert tells you that women aren't afraid of big crowds. Women are afraid of crowds of men. And I was like, damn, because there's 70,000 people, most of them women, not one person looked afraid. But you know what? When you go in big crowds or there's a ton of men and you're wearing something provocative, people think that they can touch you, they can do this and whatever. And I thought that was a big eye opener in that situation.
Justin always talks about, how does it go? If you question a bunch of women and they're like, what's the one thing you
Oh,
can do
there
once
was
in the
it was a
world?
question on Twitter. It was what would women do if there were no men on the planet for 24 hours? And one of them would say, go outside at night. And
Yeah.
that really changed my thoughts on not thoughts. It just opened my eyes. That's all.
Yeah, because it's not something you've ever had experience.
No,
something you
not
never
at
would think
all.
of,
Like
you know?
I was very feminine looking when I was a kid.
But we didn't have streets to walk down.
It was Dr. Bruce Perry though. I read a book of his, and he said your memory isn't like a videotape or a recording. Your memory is basically a Word document. And when every time you open it up, it kind of gets modernized or it changed a little bit. And I think that's pretty incredible with the MDRs. You can literally go back and safely change that memory.
Yeah.
And it's not something you want to do as in be in denial and whatnot. You should do it in a safe place. But the EMDRs, eye movement and music and whatnot. And I think we talk about working out and we talk about that stuff it puts you in a space where you have to pay attention, where you have to safely. And this kind of distracts you enough that you can handle that memory. And I really feel like you got to take emotion out of this stuff sometimes. And you got to like remove it, fix it, and then you can put it back. Almost like a cavity.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, the way that it's done, you really feel like you're reliving that moment. Like it was so real after I did it that like, cause they have, for example, I'll just use my case that like, so my adult self went And I looked into that 11-year-old, my own eyes, and grabbed that child and hugged her and said, it's going to be okay. And then I took her to my grandmother's. That was my safe place.
Yeah.
You kind of work through all these details before you get into the memory, like you figure out where your safe place is going to be. But I mean, and I can remember for probably a solid 3 weeks, I would go home and just look in the mirror and like you see those same eyes reflecting back, and I would just bawl. Like it was just like like ugly cry. Like I would just be in this like I would be brushing my teeth or whatever and just kind of like look in the mirror, look myself in the eyes, and like you still see like that child, and it's just like just completely just tugs your heartstrings, and it's just like you feel all that emotion, that pain that child is carrying, and it's just it's so real. It's incredible and kind of freaky at the same time. But
and the fear you carry as a child, because like when that's happened to you at such a young age, it's like the normal that you know. Yeah. Until you get to an age where you know it's not right. And there was someone that I loved from childhood until she was almost an adult lived that same kind of hell. And it wasn't until she ran away that it came out what was really happening. And people are like, well, why didn't she speak up? It's like, because that was normal. Like, that was her normal life. She had no idea.
And there's really so much generational trauma, too. Like, not only with that, like, my abuser was also being abused by, you know, by another family member. Like, it was just like, awful. Like once you're an adult and you're able to look back and really like dig deep as far as like what happened there, like they were being abused by another adult, like that it just like this pattern. And it's even, you know, I was told like this is a part of growing up, like all of this like you know cliche language that I mean this is what's used, like you know, people that don't have the resources, like this is what they say. This is what it's part of growing up. It's just, you know, this.
And
is
it's keeping it quiet.
Yeah.
And so, did your abuser ever get any?
My abuser spent some time, and a good amount of time, in jail for other reasons, but
which
never
is
for
probably
that.
common.
Yeah. But never for
What he did do.
any kind of assault or
That was probably hard.
So, yes, I mean, it was kind of good that it was like out of sight, out of mind for so many years, like probably close to 20 years, really. But recently, I saw him for the first time just last year, and I had my daughter with me when I saw him for the first time, and I really like was dreading that moment in my mind. I was like, if this day ever comes, like I am gonna completely like
Lose it.
unravel and lose my mind. And I saw him and I felt nothing.
Yeah.
Good.
Is that a good feeling?
Oh my gosh. I was just like, I like called my therapist the next week. And I was like, oh my God, you would never believe what happened. Like I saw him and I felt nothing. Like it was, and just, you know, it's just so validating for me and all the work that I've done to be like, you're not taking any more rent space in my head. Like,
absolutely.
That's
see you
fantastic.
later. Like,
And that's a part of knowing, like when you can look at someone and not feel anything, or you actually feel sadness for them, like that this is the life that you have to live in and you're not going to heal from it. You also almost feel like sad for them. Like that's when you know that you've done work. That's an incredible feeling.
So you went from this situation to college. Basically, for a lot of us, college was huge just because it was our first move out of the area. In the previous generation to us, so many women got married to men maybe they didn't know that well or didn't love or whatever else, just because it was like women in the 60s, 70s weren't allowed out of the house unless they were not allowed out of the house, but they weren't allowed to like get jobs, go to college, that sort of stuff. And we are products of those people. So when you got to college, where there's so much pressure to just get married, have a kid, get married, have a kid, get married, have a kid. Do you feel like that was part of your reason to get into this relationship? Like you found somebody that you thought was safe, and it's like, I better capitalize on this because I want to save
Absolutely.
adulthood.
That was the expectation, right? Oh my God, if I left college without a husband, like, you know? But no, that was definitely like part of the expectation. And oddly enough, like even in that time, like he had his own set of issues and stuff, but like I did not want kids, and that I can remember like looking at him and I was like, and I especially like don't want kids with you. Like I can barely live my own life, right? Let alone like try to raise your children. Like that just does not seem like that's gonna work out. But
Yeah, and you mentioned too that did he physically abuse you?
No, a lot
Okay.
of verbal, emotional, no physical though.
Okay, it was a lot of
Yeah.
threats. Don't
A lot
give
of
away.
threats,
Okay.
throwing stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But when you look at that person was suffering the consequences of hiding their own identity.
Yeah.
For
and-
many
yeah.
years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that that's forgivable,
Yeah.
but when you look at it in the background, you see like that's what's going on with
Right.
this
Yeah.
person.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I like too that your identity isn't like your spouse, and that happens a lot with women when we like selling cars and introducing people to each other, stuff like that. There were so many times couples would come in and they just introduced this person as my wife, not. I don't know. You always get introduced as like so and so's husband or so and so's
Yeah.
wife, not as like I'm Kara.
Right.
And I think that's pretty that you made your own path. What was it with your current husband though that made you like safe and feel like you understood and he was like a safe person to be around?
She's like, cool. Well, thanks for putting me on the spot.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Our relationship was founded on friendship. We were friends for a good 6 months to a year before
Good.
we started dating, and we both had like kind of the same social circle. Everybody was, and we actually met through a running club.
Okay.
Neither of us run anymore. But it was just like all of our friends were coupling up, and everybody's like, "Hey, you guys should get together."
Yeah.
And we're like, "But we're friends, and we don't want to jeopardize
wanna
that."
lose it.
And I mean, we
Yeah.
played that for a long time before we decided to get together.
Like 55
But
minutes.
no, I think that was just like that was our safe place because we got tired of all of our couple friends being like, "We're busy, we're busy, we're busy," and we're like, "Oh, I guess we'll."
I guess it's us.
I guess we're
gotta
gonna hang out anyways.
hang out. So just having that foundation of friendship, and that was huge.
That was it. Yeah. And sometimes it's as simple as that. What
Yeah.
is a spouse but a friend you can spend the rest of your life with and not annoy too much that.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you want to talk about, like from us? Do you have any questions for us or anything like that? And we're really super excited to have you back. This isn't exactly easy, I could imagine.
Yeah. No, it's not. But it's awesome to see you guys. I love what you guys are doing. I wish this were part of our community when we were kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really like, let's just reflect on that for a minute because I feel like I have a lot to say from the person I was in high school, and I know a lot of our former classmates are tuned in. I mean, my heart breaks for the person I was back then, right? I just feel there were so many times where I was cutting people down, just lack of compassion, lack of empathy we went to high school with kids that didn't have running water or the luxury of wearing clean clothes
And
to
we made
school.
fun of them.
And we made fun of them. We didn't exactly have the best model, right? There wasn't, I really don't feel like there was a whole lot of opportunity or people trying to push us in the right direction.
Some
as
kids
far
live with their
as-
moms, some
or
kids live with
examples,
their dads.
yeah,
And don't
or
have a full
examples
family.
in our school to kind of foster those relationships and the inclusion. And maybe it's culture shift, then and now, but there are a lot of times when I wish I could go back in time and we could change those things, but
But you're living a life now that
That you dreamed of having.
and also that I think like makes up for what you didn't know then.
Yeah.
But you know now, and you're helping people that are less fortunate. Like you're going to other countries where you're literally going to the bathroom in a hole in the ground to
Yeah.
make sure that other people are getting the care that you know that they can't have without you being there.
Yeah.
And I think that's learning and that's growing
Yeah.
and that's part of what it's all about. And I think just having the four of us here thinking about for like this generation of kids, think about the people that are walking down the hallways with you because you don't know what they're carrying. And, like extreme anxiety, Justin carried that. Like you carried an assault story. Like I had an eating disorder. She walked with extreme grief and you don't know what people are carrying, even though they're smiling every day in the hallways. And like, so be kind at any chance that you can be, because you don't know what could put someone over the edge, because we don't know what their story is. And I think that that's an amazing lesson to learn from this. And when I was sitting here thinking, like we were talking the whole time, I'm thinking we all had our own secrets. And if we only had like the power of being vulnerable with each other, like we could have been healing a long time ago.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of you mentioned some of our biggest supporters are our peers, which is fantastic. You guys, we genuinely do appreciate it, the amount of people that reach out and say, hey, thanks and whatnot. But you said you wish you could have went back and basically helped the younger version of yourself. But basically that's what therapy is, talking about this stuff in a way. You are doing that for yourself and for other people, and that's pretty commendable. This isn't easy. I would have never, not without doing this for 2 years, if you would have called me and said, hey Justin, come talk about your childhood, the scariest parts of your childhood, I've been like, nope, see you, Karen, not doing this.
What do you mean?
Not
My
at all.
childhood was fine.
Yeah.
And I commend you. I think giving back, we all work in the service community, whatever that means. We give back to other people, and I think you're a good person. You were one of the people I thought of pretty immediately whenever we started doing like these interviews and stuff like that. Proud of you for with the stuff you've been able to do.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? I feel like someone needs to tell a joke or something, make it funny.
Well, you're the only one that tells me that.
I got
nothing.
Jokes are kind of shitty too.
Yeah. Some upcoming stuff. We'll keep you guys posted on our page and whatnot. We met Favor, which is a Westmoreland County group that we're going to start working with, I think. I met a ton of people in this suicide training class I took this week, and a lot of contacts. We're going to have a gentleman come up pretty soon that has OCD, and not like OCD as in I have to put my radio on like 5 or anything like that. I'm talking like he counts like this, talks to people, and like anytime he puts money in his wallet, he's got to like surround it 7 or 8 times. He'll like walk past a mirror and have to do this because he has to see like both his ears and backs of his hands at the same time, and it's pretty incredible. And he's one of the funniest people I've met, so I'm kind of afraid what's going to happen. But we got some of that coming up. There's going to be some interesting stuff as we kind of build on this, and you're a recurring guest, so you have to come on anytime we ask you from now on, regardless of where you are. So,
And you have to come back from Nashville and do it.
Yeah.
Or we could just make a trip to Nashville.
Oh my God!
Anytime,
Yeah. I'd love that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Any closing thoughts, anybody?
Be kind.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Good. All right. Love you guys.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Go outside.